Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into a bunch of sources all about habit formation, really drilling down on this idea of atomic habits.
Right, these sort of single, tiny units that, are the building blocks for bigger systems.
Exactly. And our mission really is to show you how these small, everyday shifts can actually lead to, well, massive results down the line.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in looking for that, instant success story. But what this material really hammers home is that the biggest changes, they're usually slow burns. They're the sum of tiny, sustainable improvements.
And there's this one author's personal story that just perfectly kicks this off. It's quite dramatic, actually. A story of, well, forced change.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty intense. End of his sophomore year, high school, a baseball bat slips out of a classmate's hands during a swing.
And hits him square in the face.
Yeah, and the injuries were, catastrophic isn't too strong a word. Multiple skull fractures, crushed nose, shattered eye sockets, even a mild coma.
Just awful. And the recovery sounds brutal. Double vision for weeks, couldn't drive for, 8 months?
8 long months. And you can imagine he was a baseball player. That was his thing.
So a year later, he tries to get back into it, make the varsity team.
And gets cut. Humbling, right. For someone whose identity was tied up in the sport, that must have been devastating.
Holy. But then, you fast forward a few years.
And he's the top male athlete at his university, Denison University. Even makes the ESPN Academic All-America team.
It's an incredible turnaround. But the key thing he stresses, and this is crucial, is that it wasn't one big moment.
Yeah.
No magic pill.
No, exactly. He calls it a gradual evolution. It was basically a long series of small wins, tiny breakthroughs stacked on top of each other.
That's the real takeaway, isn't it? If you want to improve, you have to start small. Build those small wins.
Which brings us to this core idea, the aggregation of marginal gains. It sounds fancy, but it's basically a philosophy.
Okay, break that down.
It just means looking for tiny improvements, like just 1% in absolutely everything you do related to your goal.
1%. That sounds manageable, but maybe.
Yeah.
Insignificant.
You'd think so. But the classic case study here is British cycling. And it's fascinating because, well, for the better part of 100 years, they were famous for failure.
Utter failure is putting it mildly, right? I mean, the stats are kind of shocking.
Oh, totally. Since 1908, just 1 Olympic gold medal. And in 110 years, 0 Tour de France wins. 0.
It was so bad that apparently a major bike company actually refused to sell them bikes.
Yeah. Can you believe it? They were afraid that being associated with the British team would actually hurt their brand image. That's how bad it was.
Wow. Okay, so in walks this guy, Dave Brailsford, the new performance director, armed with this marginal gains idea.
Right. And he wasn't looking for some miracle cure or revolutionary bike tech. He was looking for those tiny 1% tweaks.
So what kind of things are we talking about? Like better training schedules?
Some of it was obvious, yeah. Like redesigning bike seats for better comfort, ergonomics, using rubbing alcohol on tires for maybe a tiny bit more grip.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then they went deep. Really into the weeds, testing different massage gels. They even hired a surgeon.
A surgeon? For what?
To teach the team the absolute best way to wash their hands to cut down on colds and infections.
You're kidding. Hand washing technique.
Seriously. And it gets wilder. They optimized mattresses and pillows for each rider's perfect sleep.
Okay, sleep makes sense for athletes.
But then they painted the inside of the team truck white.
White? Why on earth?
So they could spot even the tiniest specks of dust that might get into the bike mechanics and affect performance. Just tiny, tiny details.
That is obsessive.
Yeah.
But it really captures that 1% idea, looking everywhere.
Exactly. Most teams would stop at the bike seat or the training plan. They looked at everything.
But hang on, couldn't this just be about having a huge budget, throwing money at lots of small problems? Is this actually useful for, regular people?
That's a fair question. But the point is, it wasn't one massive, expensive silver bullet. It was dozens of relatively small, often inexpensive adjustments. And you can't argue with the results.
Right, the results were staggering. What happened?
Within 5 years, Beijing Olympics, 2008, they didn't just improve, they dominated. Won something like 60% of the available gold medals in cycling.
60%. From basically zero.
And that momentum just kept building. 5 Tour de France victories in 6 years between 2012 and 2017 with riders like Bradley Wiggins and Chris Froome.
That's undeniable proof of something working.
Right.
And that something links back to habits, right? The compounding effect.
Absolutely. Habits are basically the compound interest of self-improvement. Think about it. Knowledge compounds. What you learn today builds on yesterday's knowledge, like Warren Buffett talks about with learning.
Okay, I get that.
Productivity compounds too. You automate one small task, it frees up mental energy for harder problems. Relationships compound. Being slightly nicer consistently builds this huge network of goodwill over time.
But it cuts both ways, doesn't it? Negative compounding is also a thing.
Oh, definitely. And that's the scary part. Small stresses, like daily traffic or low-level anxiety, if you don't manage them, they compound into serious health issues later.
And negative thoughts too, right? Like a vicious cycle.
Exactly. Small doubts can feed bigger insecurities, creating this self-fulfilling negative loop in your head.
Which is why understanding this next idea is so important, this plateau of latent potential. Because progress isn't always visible, is it?
Not at all. We often quit too early because we expect to see results now linearly. Day-by-day improvement.
But life rarely works like that. It's more like nothing, 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 then suddenly, bang, everything changes. How do we get our heads around that?
The ice cube analogy is perfect. Imagine a room at 25 degrees Fahrenheit. You raise it to 26, 27, up to 31 degrees. The ice cube just sits there.
Right.
No visible change.
Right, still frozen.
But that tiny shift from 31 to 32 degrees, boom, massive change, the ice starts melting. That huge outcome wasn't just caused by that last degree.
It was all the heat that built up before it finally hit the melting point.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Or think of the stone cutter hammering a rock maybe 100 times, nothing happens. But the 101st blow splits it wide open. It wasn't just that last hit, it was the accumulation of all the previous ones.
So you need patience. You have to trust the process and wait for that potential to build up.
Exactly. Which leads us nicely into the practical side, the actual mechanics of habit change. Let's start with the first law, make it obvious.
Okay, make it obvious. The big challenge here seems to be that so much of what we do is just automatic. We're on autopilot.
Totally. There's a great example in the sources about a retail clerk. She'd been cutting up old gift cards, just going through the motions. Then the next customer hands her their actual credit card, and she just mindlessly cuts it in half. Completely non-conscious habit loop.
Whoops. Okay, yeah, that illustrates the autopilot problem perfectly. So the first step is just becoming aware.
Exactly. You have to bring those unconscious habits into the light. The tool suggested is simple. The habit scorecard.
How does that work?
You just list your daily behaviors, everything. Getting coffee, checking email, scrolling social media. Then you mark each one. Is it good, plus, bad, or neutral?
Just seeing it written down must help.
It does, but there's a deeper layer to scoring them. The identity test.
Identity test.
Yeah, instead of just good or bad, ask yourself, does this habit cast a vote for or against the type of person I want to be?
Oh, interesting. So like every time I skip a workout, I'm casting a vote for being unhealthy.
Or flipping it, every time you write one page, you're casting a vote. I am a writer. It links the habit to your desired identity.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
But even if we know what we want to do, why is it still so hard? Is it just lack of motivation?
Well, the sources argue pretty strongly that motivation is kind of overrated. The real driver, often invisible, is your environment.
The environment shapes us more than willpower.
Massively. It's the invisible hand guiding your behavior. There's this fantastic study by Dr. Ann Thorndike in a hospital cafeteria.
Right, the cafeteria experiment. What does she do?
She wanted people to make healthier choices, but without nagging them or relying on their motivation, so she just changed the choice architecture.
Choice architecture.
Basically, how the choices were presented. For example, the fridges right by the cash registers, they used to be full of only soda. She just added water to those main fridges and put big baskets of bottled water near all the food stations. Made water the easy, obvious choice.
And nobody got a lecture about drinking water.
Nope. No pep talks, no posters, just changed the layout.
Yeah.
And the results. Soda sales dropped over 11%, and water sales shot up by almost 26%.
Wow. Just by making water easier to grab, the environment did the heavy lifting.
Exactly. And we see this with cues, too. Think about the Schiphol airport example.
Oh, the fly in the urinal. That one's famous.
Right. They put a tiny sticker that looked like a fly near the drain in the men's urinals.
Why a fly?
It acts as a supernormal stimulus, an exaggerated target. It taps into an almost instinctual need to, well, aim at something specific.
So this tiny, obvious cue.
Significantly improved aim and cut cleaning costs by 8% a year, all because of a simple, obvious visual cue.
Okay, so make it obvious is about cues and environment. Once we've got the cue right, how do we make sure we actually do the habit again and again? That must be about the reward.
Precisely. Which jumps us to the fourth law. Make it satisfying. The core idea is simple. Behaviors followed by satisfying consequences tend to be repeated.
Common sense, right. We do what feels good.
It is common sense, but the problem is timing. Our brains evolved for what's called an immediate return environment.
Immediate return, like hunting and finding food right away.
Exactly. Hunt, gather, find shelter. The payoff was quick. But modern life, it's mostly a delayed return environment. Saving for retirement, studying for years for a career, the rewards are far off.
So our brains are wired for instant gratification, but our goals often require patience. That's the mismatch.
That's the time inconsistency problem. Our brain prefers the quick hit, which makes sticking to long-term habits really tough.
So the trick is to somehow give ourselves an immediate reward for doing something that only pays off later.
You got it. Engineer immediate satisfaction. The Karachi hand-washing study is a perfect example of this.
Okay, tell me about that one. Hand washing seems pretty straightforward.
Well, public health workers in Karachi found that people knew hand washing was important to prevent disease. They understood the long-term benefit.
But they just weren't doing it consistently.
Right. The delayed reward, maybe not getting sick weeks later, wasn't motivating enough in the moment.
So what was the intervention? More education? Posters?
Nope. It was the soap itself. They introduced a really high-quality soap, one that lathered up nicely and, crucially, smelled really good.
Good soap. That was the fix.
That was the key. The pleasant smell, the nice feeling of the lather that provided an immediate positive sensory reward. It made the act of washing hands feel good right now.
It engineered a quick payoff for a healthy habit. And did it work?
Dramatically. Hand washing rates soared and diarrhea rates among children dropped by over 50%. The immediate satisfaction from the nice soap was more powerful than just knowing the long-term health benefits.
That's incredible. The feeling of the habit mattered more than the reason for the habit.
In terms of driving repetition, yes. Now, how do you apply this to habits where the goal is to not do something? Like avoiding junk food or impulse buys.
Right, resisting temptation isn't inherently satisfying, it feels like deprivation.
Exactly, so you have to make the avoidance visible and rewarding.
How do you make not doing something visible?
One technique is to create, say, a savings account specifically labeled for something you want. Let's call it the leather jacket fund.
I like where this is going.
Every time you successfully resist buying something you don't need, like skipping that expensive daily latte, you immediately transfer the money you saved, say $5, into that leather jacket fund.
So you get an immediate visible reward seeing the fund grow for the act of resisting.
Precisely. It gives your brain that satisfying little hit right when you practice the good behavior, even though the good behavior is doing nothing.
Clever.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. Even if we set up these great systems, there's still the challenge of just sticking with it long term, the boredom factor.
Yes, the enemy of all progress. Boredom. There's this idea called the Goldilocks rule. Peak motivation happens when a task is right on the edge of your abilities.
Not too hard, not too easy.
Exactly. Too hard leads to frustration, too easy leads to boredom. And the problem is, once a habit becomes automatic, it often slides into that too easy, boring category.
So the routine itself becomes the threat.
Absolutely. The sources are clear. The biggest threat to long-term success isn't usually failure, it's boredom. Habits stop being interesting, stop being satisfying, and we drift.
So how do successful people fight the boredom?
This is where the distinction between amateurs and professionals comes in. Anyone can grind when they feel inspired or motivated.
But motivation fades.
Right. The difference is professionals stick to the schedule, amateurs let life get in the way. Professionals show up even when it's boring. They rely on the system, not the mood.
So it's about commitment to the process, even the dull parts, not chasing constant excitement.
Exactly, which ties into the final big idea, the truth about talent. Hard work isn't enough if you're playing the wrong game.
Meaning you need to align your efforts with your natural abilities.
Yes. Consider the athlete paradox example. You compare swimmer Michael Phelps and runner Hachem El Garouche.
Okay, Phelps, tall swimmer, long torso. El Garouche, shorter distance runner, long legs.
Right. Phelps is 6'4", El Garouche 5'9". But here's the kicker. They wear the same length pants inseam.
Wow, really? Their proportions are that different.
Totally different body types, perfectly suited for their respective sports. Phelps, at nearly 200 pounds with that build, would be a terrible elite distance runner. El Garouche, at 138 pounds, wouldn't have the power or structure for elite swimming.
So genes and natural abilities only become huge advantages in the right environment, the right competition.
Exactly. Your talent is maximized when you choose the right field to compete in.
So for us non-Olympians, what does that mean? Find what we're naturally good at.
Sort of. It means doing a realistic skills audit and realizing that if you can't win by being flat out better than everyone at one thing, maybe you can win by being different.
How does that work?
Think of Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert. He openly says he's not the world's best artist. He's not the world's funniest comedian.
Right.
But he was better than average at drawing, funnier than average, and he had years of real-world corporate business experience. He combined those skills.
The combination was unique.
Exactly. That specific combination, decent art, decent humor, plus niche business knowledge, created a unique category where he had almost no competition. He didn't have to be the best. He just had to be different in the right way. He created his own game.
So it's not about finding one superpower, but maybe stacking several good enough skills that you enjoy.
That's the key. Find the intersection of things you're reasonably good at, and crucially, things you find interesting enough to stick with through the boring parts. Design a game where your unique stack of skills gives you an edge.
Focus on where your existing strengths are most valuable, rather than just fixing weaknesses.
You got it.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. From British cycling's 1% wins and the plateau of latent potential, to making cues obvious with flies and urinals, and making satisfaction immediate with good soap or savings funds.
Yeah, the thread through all that is that lasting change comes from tiny, consistent actions, supported by smart systems and the right environment. It's about bypassing the need for constant, heroic willpower.
The systems do the work, and sticking to those systems seems less about raw intelligence and more about something else.
Curiosity, maybe. Desire. The willingness to keep showing up, especially when it gets repetitive.
Which brings us perfectly to our final thought for you, the listener. The sources suggest that true excellence often requires being endlessly fascinated by doing the same things over and over. You actually have to learn to fall in love with the boredom.
So the question to ponder is this: what seemingly tedious, repetitive process in your own life or work could you commit to mastering? Not because it's exciting every day, but because you find the slow, steady accumulation itself intrinsically rewarding.
Find that, commit to it, and that might just be where your next breakthrough lies.